Saturday, March 9th, 2024, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today, we're going to look at a limited company in the UK that is losing tens of billions, but it's still going to be in business, and eventually you'll probably lose hundreds of billions. And guess what? We, the taxpayers, are bailing it out. And indirectly, that's leading to the bailout of the banking system. And of course, you haven't heard about banks being bailed out. The last time that happened, of course, was in 0809 when we had to bail out RBS, which is now called NatWest, mainly because the whole city of London, the whole international banking too big to fail banks went on a gambling spree, and it backfired on them. All the derivatives, all the subprime mortgages, and we had to bail them out. It wasn't because the economy was in bad shape. It was because these bankers were irresponsible. They were gambling in a casino, and then the government had to step in and borrow hundreds of billions, as you can see here, by looking at the Bank of England's balance sheet in 08. And what's that got to do with the government having to borrow hundreds of billions? Well, the Bank of England, through a company called the Bank of England Asset Purchase Facility Fund Limited, they started buying these gilts. And why would the Bank of England buy these gilts? Well, because the market and the banks were failing. No one really had any money. So the Bank of England created these reserves out of thin air, hundreds of billions, to buy the bonds. The other reason they had to buy the bonds as well, aside from no one having money, is that if they didn't, the gilt market would collapse. Interest rates would have gone through the roof, because hopefully most of you know by now that when bond prices drop, bond yields go up. That was in 0809. We had to bail out the banks, and the Bank of England created this Asset Purchase Facility Fund Limited, and it's still around, and you can see that it was incorporated in January of 09 to take over the QE facility. But the deal with the Treasury was that eventually, well, the deal was that the profits they made on the gilts and other assets they bought, I think eventually they bought corporate bonds, the profits they made on those, they would send it to the Treasury. But if they started losing a lot of money, the Treasury would have to pay them, or i.e. us. And of course, once you start down the road of money printing or QE, and I've spoken about this many times, it was tried back in the 1790s in France with the assignats. It was just going to be one issue, right, to get the economy going again, to bail everyone out. But you can never stop. And as you can see here, we've never stopped, or the Bank of England has never stopped. The government has never stopped. And if you look at the government debt, that hasn't stopped going up. So basically what they've been doing is bailing out the bankers in order to keep this Ponzi fiat currency scheme going, this casino going. And now that bond yields or gilt yields have been going through the roof in the last 3 years, they've gone from below 1% to like 5% back in 2022. They're still really high. What's happened is all these assets that the Bank of England has bought, all these gilts, government bonds, they've lost value. So the Bank of England is underwater to the tune of billions, right? And does that matter? Can't they just print the money to cover that? Not really, because they're trying to unwind this. And if they start printing more, you could see gold go even higher, everything go crazy. So what they have to do, they have to have us bail them out again. So it's like a casino, as I said. The house always wins, and we get taken for a ride, and it's all complicated, and people don't understand it. They never look at this mechanism because they make it so complicated. And talking about the complication of the system and the Bank of England, I highly recommend William Cobbett's letters while he was in prison back in the early 1800s. He wrote about paper against gold, containing the history and mystery of the Bank of England, the funds, the debt, the lowering and the raising of the value of paper money. And he goes on about how the bankers and the Bank of England in the city, they give things all these arcane, technical names to make the public really unaware of what's going on. It sounds also complicated that people give up and they don't understand what's going on. By the way, I have a playlist for, because I've done some videos about these letters that he wrote. I'm gonna put it up in the card so you can listen to this. So back to the present day, though. As I said, the QE has continued. Yes, they've kind of unwound the balance sheet recently, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep doing it for much longer. And what's happened is that the Bank of England is amassing huge losses. There's an article here from Columbia Threadneedle Investments, and it says, will the Bank of England have to change course on QE losses? Figures out last month showed the quantitative easing QE program is on course to lose 170 billion over its lifetime. Yes, and we're going to have to pay that. This article, of course, is from December 2023. So the problem the Bank of England has is if gilt yields continue to rise, their losses continue to rise. And I'm afraid that the only way to keep gilt yields low will be to do more QE. And you do more QE, you add on to the balance sheet, and you make the Bank of England's assets more susceptible to huge losses. But be as it may, why are we also bailing out the banks? Well, because the commercial or private banks that operate in the City of London, in the UK banking system, they depend on the Bank of England to create these reserves out of thin air. And these banks, the way they replenish their reserves is by borrowing from the Bank of England. So if the Bank of England goes, so do these banks go. And that's why I'm saying that we're bailing out the taxpayer, we're bailing out the banks again. So what's the solution on an individual basis for us? Well, just don't go to the casino. It sounds easy, doesn't it? And how do you do that? Well, you don't play the game. You don't go to the casino. And I know a lot of people, the whole economy is based on this casino. We have to, a lot of you have to borrow. A lot of you have mortgages or debt. But I would say try to avoid the casino as much as possible. That's the whole thing. There are some, of course, who think the government should issue the currency without debt or interest attached to it. Well, that's modern monetary theory, or they also look at the Bradbury pound back during World War One, and I recently spoke about that. I don't think that's the solution either, because the purpose of government is not to create money out of thin air either. It doesn't mean to say that I'm for the Bank of England, or for a bank like the Bank of England to have a monopoly on the issue of currency. That's not the solution either. The solution is to abolish the Bank of England and to allow the market, free banking, and to allow people to decide whether they want to put their money with the bank. And what would be money? Well, it would be gold and silver, of course. That's how it used to be. Why do you think the Bank of England note has a promise to pay? Well, that was a promise to pay money. And some will argue, the MMT people, that it doesn't, gold standard fails because there's never enough gold. But it's not the gold that's the problem. Under the central banking fractional reserve system, it's the dishonesty of the bankers that hurts the gold standard, because they issue more loans than they have cover for. If I have an ounce of gold, I'm not going to lend 10 ounces. I'm going to lend 1 ounce. And that's the whole problem. So the solution is not either a gold standard. The solution is having no central bank, having no government currency issued out of thin air. The solution is for the government to be responsible for minting the money through its mints. And why the government? Well, because the government is supposed to have more credibility, but it could be done privately as well, private mints. Do you really think that bureaucrats at the Treasury know how much currency an economy needs? The only way that can be determined how much money you need in an economy is through individual interaction, voluntary transactions amongst people, which is called the free market. It's not going to be a guy at the Treasury deciding how much currency we should have. So that's why I don't agree with the Bradbury Pound and MMT. So how do we get this message out there that the problem is the Bank of England and the banks that benefit from its largesse? Well, we just have to keep informing the public, and that's what I try to do here. And one of the reasons why I'm talking about this morning is that I saw a tweet this morning from John Redwood, who was a former Tory MP, and he said, "Why do high-paid staff at the Bank of England get a 4% pay rise when the bank has sent a bill of $34 billion to the government to pay for its huge losses so far this year?" So, Mr. Redwood, if you'd like, come on my channel, and I'd explain to you that, this 4% pay rise is really not that significant in the scheme of things, because the Bank of England, of course, can just print that and give their employees the pay rise. The crux of the matter here is this 34 billion, which could end up being 170 billion, according to Columbia Threadneedle here, and we're going to be paying for it, the taxpayer. So the house always wins, right? The banks failed back in 2008. The Bank of England and the government, everything was going to go under. So they borrowed from us, right? From futurity, if you want to call it. And they have kept doing it. And we, our children, their children, our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, keep getting screwed by this system. It's parasitic. Is it any wonder that our currency has gone down so much? Not just here, of course, but in other countries. And we're going to come to that in a minute when we look at gold. No, it's not. Because, yes, they keep bailing out a few thousand people in the city of London and on Wall Street on the back of the population. And, yes, that's what's going on. So indirectly, we're bailing them out again. And you won't hear a peep about that. All you hear about is, when is the next general election? What's happening in Ukraine? What happened to the not Donald Trump, but the State of the Union address? What's happening vis-a-vis George Galloway? What's happening in Celebrity Big Brother or the Premiership, but no one talks about this, and this is the most important topic of our time because it affects all of us through the debasement of our currency, the taxation, which is at the highest it's been since World War II, and a lot more. So I said I'd touch up on gold. And yes, gold has been frustrating, I guess, to an extent. When you look at other things that have been going up. But as I said earlier, I got involved in gold back in '02 because I learned about the system, and I could tell that what we're seeing today was going to happen, not because I have a crystal ball, but because governments and bankers always abuse their power. And that was another thing that happened in '08. The bankers got away with murder, so to speak. And what that did is that didn't really rein them in. It didn't like give them religion. So they're still at it. The derivatives mountain is still humongous. The speculation's still humongous. And we've had to keep bailing them out. And I'll go back to that Bank of England balance sheet. It went up there in '08, but it's kept going up. That's why gold is breaking out here, as you can see. And this is in dollars, but it's also breaking out in pounds. The pound, it's even worse, I think, the pound, because we don't have the major reserve currency, and we don't have as much gold, supposedly, as the Americans. But be as it may, as you can see here, I wrote here, we've only just begun, which was a song from the Carpenters back in the '70s. And that's where I think gold is. What's important here, in my opinion, is not the profit that you're going to make in pounds or dollars, but it's how gold is going to really be a way to hold your purchasing power that's rapidly getting trounced in your fiat currency, i.e. the pound or the dollar and the euro. And that's what gold is doing. This is much more serious than just trading. This could be the collapse of the whole system. And why do I say that? Well, because we've never seen central banks print as much money as we've seen in the last 16 years now. And we haven't seen governments borrow as much as they have. And it's no coincidence, of course, that the money printing and the borrowing have taken place at the same time. And the problem with this system is it's a debt-based system, and it's also suffocating the economy, and the economy has no productive capacity anymore to pay those debts. So they have to keep, unfortunately, it sounds paradoxical, they have to keep issuing more and more debt, and that's probably why they're going to cut rates again and issue even more or do even more QE and more government borrowing. You can bet on that. And the only thing gold and silver as well do, they're not special. It's just that they can't be created out of thin air as much as currencies can be. And they're special, they're precious, and people, value them and have for thousands of years. And that's why the price of gold is just beginning here to go up really massively, in my opinion. But all it means is that the currencies are finally really on their final leg to worthlessness. That's what it means. And it's interesting that the Carpenters, they were around, as you can see here, from 1969 to 1981. Why is that important? Well, that's when we had the last gold bull market, roughly, from like 1968 to 1980, 81. So there you go. Will it help writing to your MP and telling them that You don't want to bail out the Bank of England? Well, you could try. I mean, we've recently seen an MP, Andrew Bridgen, write a letter to the head of the Metropolitan Police asking him to investigate a lot of top people in government and yeah, in government and also in the medical profession as it pertains to the crisis we had in 2020 to 2022 and even now. And I think he wrote the letter back in February 2024, and I don't think he's heard back from the head of the Metropolitan Police, the commissioner. Well, who are his bosses? The head of the Metropolitan Police. Well, it's the politicians. So what I'm trying to say here, it won't really matter if you write to your MP about this, and that's why I keep stacking because this is going to go on and on and on until they can't. And until they can't, that moment is when the currency will be worthless. And that's when you want to have some gold and silver. It won't make you, well, it might make you a lot better off than the great majority of people. But all it means is that the world will be a lot different, not physically, but financially. And hopefully you'll be able to hold on to your gold and silver so that when the everything implodes, you'll be able to build up again. Use that money to to bring the economy back. I think we're going to be an important part of it. Some people actually, think that it's Bitcoin, but the problem I have with Bitcoin is that it's never been through a crisis like this, while gold and silver have been going through wars, revolutions, plagues, yes, a fall of empires for thousands of years, and it's still here. So that's why my money is on gold and silver. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good weekend. The sun's coming out. I think we're going to go out with Rudy today. We're going to take him to the park. It's going to be a nice day. We've been out already this morning, of course. So, yes, have a great weekend. Take care. Bye.